Hey, welcome to another episode of the Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Jeff Harrison, along with my dancing panda friend next door.
You point the other way. I'm on the other side of you. Oh, maybe I don't know. When I look at it, I'm
No,
over here.
you're on that side. You're right over there.
Leslie Spohr, by the way, that's who I am.
Yeah. You know, Leslie, tell people why we do this. We're in episode, like, I don't know, like 26 or 27, something like we're in the mid to upper 20s. So,
It's so exciting.
that's almost four times the number that most people, when they say, "Hey, I'm going to make a podcast," well, they fail. They don't usually get to number 7, and we're here in, like I
They
said,
don't.
mid to upper 20s. Yep, it takes a lot of work, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
it does. But it's so much fun. We're here because we, first of all, you and I are very good at brainstorming together. Our businesses complement each other. Um, and I coach for you and I learn from you and I do my best to help you be a better business person.
You
which you have
do.
which you have improved quite a bit. So I'm very happy about that. And
Thank
I'm
you.
talking about keeping your focus and staying in your lane. That's always been your difficult thing to do. So I'm real proud of you for that. But we're here to help other business owners, not just each other, improve their businesses and not have to reinvent the wheel every day. We've been through all of your pain, all of it. And we know that it's easy to get twisted and exhausted as a small business owner. So we want to help you avoid a lot of the stress and a lot of the problems. That's our goal with this whole podcast.
Yeah, so if you're masochistic, you probably want to just bail now, because we're going to give you remedies. We're going to give some things. We're going to talk about something today that I think, as entrepreneurs, this is challenging for us, and this is the cost of doing it all, and why delegation isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. That is almost like speaking a foreign language to an entrepreneur, because let's face it, we move from being a W-2, or maybe we never were, because we always had that creative spirit, like we can do this,
Mhm.
that whenever anything comes up, Leslie, is like, I can do this. And the script that used to go in my mind all the time was this: when something new came along, is like, how can I? And I had to make a real shift from how can I to who can I. In other
Right.
words, instead of learning that and being really, I'm going to say, kind of pulled offline in my business for however long it took to learn that, to be proficient at it, or at least
Mhm.
understand it. My business, the world was moving on. And so what I did is I finally, with your help, and I said, who can I hire? And what it
Right.
allowed me to do, it allowed me to start going at warp speed, because I said, hey, I need somebody to do this. Go hire the best at that. I need somebody to do this. I can go hire the best at that. And that made a difference for me. What do you think?
Well, I can hear the people on the other side of the screen saying, "Yeah, but I can't afford to hire anybody." Right? That's always their excuse. And part of that, you fall into this trap because when you start out and you're on your own, you do everything yourself. You wear all the hats, right? You wear marketing, networking, finance, creative, the creative piece of it, building your marketing collateral, all of that stuff. You do it all, and you're trying to get out there and get clients and service them and take care of them, and it is quite overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to step away and say, okay, now I need to bring in help. Who, and then how can I afford it? And I believe I've talked about this particular situation before, but I got to the point where if I had to enter one more invoice or run one more credit card, seriously, I was going to hurt somebody. I could not stomach the thought of running one more credit card, right? So eventually I had to go hire someone. And when you charge for time in particular, and it's true for widgets too, you have to do that return on investment. So how many hours do I have to work to afford to have this person?
Mm-hmm.
Or how many things do I have to sell in order to afford to have somebody to help me? And in the long run, when you get to the point of wanting to throw the computer out the window, then you finally say, I'm just going to do it and see how it happens. And what happens almost, I would say, every single time is that when you free yourself up to give somebody else some of your duties, your business grows. Every
Mm-hmm.
time I've hired somebody, my business got bigger every single time. that seems counterintuitive. I think people might say, well, you're paying somebody, so how does your business get bigger? Well, it does, because I am available now to go focus on bringing in new clients, right? And so, or to create new social media content, or to create new content to support my existing clients. So, and the same thing. We've had that conversation with you. When you bring on an editor so that you don't have to edit everything, that frees you up to go bring in new business, or to create more content for somebody, or to focus on AI, right? So in the beginning, for me, I automated a lot of the billing part of our stuff. So I didn't even need the bookkeeper I had for 10 years. Her work has dwindled to very small, because we've now automated that using AI philosophies and stuff. So, there's a thread in through all of this, right? That it all works together. Your automation, my streamline of services, seeing the value in delegation, because otherwise you're constantly working on your business you're constantly working in it instead of on it. And we both know that's a bad deal, right?
Well, yeah. Well, every one of us as entrepreneurs, we do reach that point where we kind of we've run into the wall. And I'm having a conversation with somebody right now who wants me to help them, because they said, I see that I could do so much more, but I just don't have the energy or the bandwidth to do it. So
Right.
it's frustrating for them, because they're seeing how they can grow their business, but they just don't have the energy to do it. And I think that it's almost like it's a tipping point, but it almost is a point where, like, this person left alone would probably in another 3 to 6 months shut it down, because
Yeah.
he's like, I just can't do anymore. And that's when you definitely need to step back and say, okay, who's somebody I can bring in to help me do some of the things that I just do not like doing. And
Right.
those are usually repetitive tasks. And that's where, I remember when I first hired and I was unique, because I started this business, Swing Point Media, with a partner at the time. So we already had a built-in, like, I didn't have to do it all. And then unfortunately, my partner got ill and she did pass away. And I did feel that, because I didn't realize how much she was doing. Like, she probably didn't realize how much I was doing. And so my first hire was a VA. And my number one concern, Leslie, was, well, am I going to be able to give this person enough work to
Yeah.
actually pay for their hours?
Right.
And so what I found myself doing is I would give them work, and they would say, okay, what else? I'm like, okay, well, take this, and then take this. And next thing you know, in like 20 hours a week, they were doing like 60 hours of effort.
Yeah.
And because they were more efficient at it, they liked doing it. That's what they wanted to do. They weren't being distracted by me saying, hey, what about this video? Hey, should we go talk to this client? And so all of a sudden it made a huge difference, and it freed me up and kind of re-energized me. Have you ever experienced something like that?
Oh, constantly. And and you have to do the return on the investment. We generally think in terms of billable hours. Those of us who sell hours for a living, uh, which most consultants do, right? We think in terms of hours. How many hours do I have to sell to afford this? And the person you're hiring is less than your billable rate, but you think of it in your billable scenario, right? And so there quite often is a lot of resistance to bringing in somebody else to do it. Well, they're not going to do it like I do it. Well, they're not going to, how can I trust them? How can I tell them all my secrets and think they're not going to take business away from me? I mean, the list of those objections goes on and on and on. And there are ways around that. I have a trick for keeping people from taking business away from you, and it works really well. And if you want to know what it is, you need to call me up and I'll share it with you. But there are ways to avoid that landmine. So people have an emotional resistance to letting go. They built their business. They got to this point. It's all about them. All the blood, sweat, and tears are theirs. And they are just super reluctant to share it with somebody. However, you can't grow and scale your business if you don't, right? That's the crux. And so you have to really look at, is this worth my time to do? right? Do I have to do this task? That's where I got to with bookkeeping. I asked myself, do is it necessary for me to process invoices?
Mm,
And it wasn't. You
yeah.
know, processing an invoice, running a credit card, that is a mechanical process. That's a step by step. I can give somebody a procedure on how to do that. Here's how you log in. Here's the steps you go through. These are the fields you fill out. Here's how to check to make sure everything went through okay. I do not need to be the one doing that. My time is way more valuable than doing that. Right. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, one of the tricks for me was this, and it was before I ever got into this business. I became aware of this. I remember when I was investing in real estate, and I was trying to, again, entrepreneur, trying to do it all myself. And at that time, my mentor said, "Well, how many hours a week are you working in this?" And I'm like, "I don't know, 60, 70 hours a week." And he said, "What are if you took how much money you make, what's your hourly rate?" And I said, "Well, okay, it's X." And he said, "Anything below that, you have to hire out somebody." And
Right.
when I started doing that, now here's the embarrassing part of this. I thought I was making really good money. This was early on in my investing. Thought I was making really good money. But by the time I put the number of hours I worked into what I made, it was an embarrassing amount, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
sometimes you're going, I don't want to do that because I don't want to see how little I'm actually making per hour, because I look at this number and say I'm making $20,000. Yeah, but I had to work 142 hours to get that,
Yeah,
right? That's oh,
you start dividing that stuff in, you find out real quick how your time is not worth what you thought it was.
well, the beauty of that, Leslie, is when I started doing that, then I started saying, well, you know what? I don't need to take care of the yard. Let me hire somebody because they
Right,
work for less an hour, and I can go do things that I make my premium hourly rate.
right,
And so what happened is, let's say, for instance, all of a sudden now I'm making the same amount of money, but I'm only working 20 hours doing it. I just
right,
gave myself a big hourly pay raise, which now
right,
says, oh, there's a lot of things I shouldn't be doing.
right.
Does that
And
make
that's
sense?
true. Absolutely. I did that with housekeeping in the 80s, right? Because I love to clean house. I used to have a business cleaning houses, as a matter of fact, 46 years ago, because my daughter's 46. And so I was pregnant with her when I was doing it. God, 46 years. Oh, anyway,
Did they still
so
have houses back then?
they did. They had dirt floors, but they still had houses. So when as soon as I went to get a regular, private sector we call them W-2 jobs. We got a W-2 job. I loved to clean house, but I was spending my whole weekends doing it. And
Mm.
I said, no, no, no. So I hired a housekeeper. Even back then when I was making $200 a week, I hired a housekeeper. And it was because you have to get to a point where I liked it. It wasn't that it was drudgery for me. I really still to this day enjoy cleaning a house, but I still have a housekeeper because I don't have the time. I don't want, let me rephrase, I don't want to give up the time
Yeah.
to do it. They can come in and out of here with three people and be in and out an hour, hour and a half, right? It would take me all day Saturday and part of Sunday to clean to the level they're cleaning. So why do that? I could write a whole bunch of new training videos in that amount of time, right? So
That's worth a whole lot more than you paid them.
exactly. And it's like the our freedom, my freedom by design course, right? That's 45 videos. That's a lot of videos. Now, granted, some of them are only a couple of minutes long and some of them are as much as 10 minutes long, but they still, it took time to develop them, write them, learn them, and then record them, so that people could have a self-study program. I would much rather spend my time doing that because I'm helping a vast amount of people than to clean my house. Does that make sense?
Well, 100%. I mean, I remember when I finally let go of the reins to have someone else edit videos, because I would typically write the script, shoot the video, edit it, publish it, market it, the whole thing, right? And so I just tested hiring somebody to do the editing. And when it came, now at this point, I had edited over 1,500 videos. So it's not like I just did 10 and say, okay, I don't want to do it. Thousands of videos, right? Or hundreds of videos. So now when it came back, I had to have a one-on-one with myself in the mirror and say, this is far better than I can do it.
Right.
And they did it faster than I could, and it was far less expensive. And since that day, now I'm not saying I don't edit videos, but I would say 95% of the video editing is now done by my staff, not me. Sometimes I do a pet project like this is what we do is like, I'll take on this and edit it when we're done. But other than that, it's like, let my staff do it. They do it better than I do. And the reason is because they are specialists at that versus I was a generalist. I was an entrepreneur generalist versus a editing specialist. And that's what was amazing. And I still see this today. We'll hire somebody to do something and they come back and like, oh, you're done already. Well, yeah, because they know exactly which button to hit all the way through. And it's beautiful. And it is one of those things where it's like the fear of, when we talk about, you said, hey, what's the fear of letting go? For me well, I was the one behind the camera and I kind of edited it as I was filming. So I already put it together. So they wouldn't know how to do that. And I have to take the time to create notes for them and editing notes and put all this stuff together. And I thought, that's too much trouble. By the time I do that, I can do it myself. Man, was I wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. And it's funny because all of your employees are virtual. They are all over the world, right?
Yep.
They're and that's the beauty of the way the world works now. It's so small. You can have somebody in Afghan, or I don't know where your people are, but in India and Afghanistan and Zimbabwe and
Africa.
Africa, all over. I mean, my marketing person's in South Africa. So, one of my marketing people, I have multiples, but yours are all virtual. They all work on their time zones to get you what you need. Mine, I have a hybrid, right? I have a bunch of people that work for me virtually, most of them all doing social media or AI or tech, from my software. And then I have people that work for me directly who are, that are physically here in the desert and drive company cars and go out and take care of our clients. So I have a hybrid, but the beauty of the world today is you can do it either way or both ways. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
You just have to find the right talent. That's the key. Find the right talent.
Well, one of the things, and I'll share this, but I know you have a system, how to delegate without sacrificing quality. And this is something that you have drilled in my head, is it was policies and procedures. And when I first started doing this, because we do a fair bit of live streaming, especially during COVID, we did over 1,500 live streams a year. And when I started to say, okay, I can't do this by myself, I need to write everything down that I do. And I remember the first time I did it, I was going, okay, step number 106. I'm like, this is going to overwhelm them. So because I was in the video industry, I thought, well, I'm just going to film what I do and then add notes. And then everything I do, I tend to just make videos for people, like tutorials. Like somebody will say, well, let's say a new client's come on and they say, well, I'm not sure how to add you in the Google Business Profile. I have a video for that. So I just send it to them and it'll walk them through it instead of me writing it down, because we learn faster. We can stop it, pause it, go back. They're not, if they're not sure where the button is, they can look on the screen and there it is. And so for me, that's how I started understanding I can pass the baton and not lose quality. And I think that's something that I've always admired about your company is you had a situation where you went through some turnover, but your clients never knew anything changed. They just had exceptionally high service.
Right. We have certain things that we do. Yes, we have written policies and procedures for everything we do. And as you were talking, I'm thinking, God, I really need to upgrade the Concierge Business Solutions procedures to be video. It'd be better if they were video. But which I would call on you to help me because, obviously the video part is not my forte. But we have specific policies and procedures for how people say things, how they document things, how they, the phraseology they use in their words. I mean, everything is the same for everybody.
Mm.
And the people that work for me are extremely good at following those procedures. So from a client perspective, when they go to look at what did you do for me today, it reads the same way, whether Eric's doing it or Mandy's doing it or Denise is doing it or April's doing it. It doesn't matter who does it. It just matters on how it reads. So the only difference for the client is the name at the bottom of the report.
Mm.
Otherwise, everything is exactly the same. And I know that sounds a little bit robotic, but it allows me to maintain the strength of my quality and credibility with these clients. And it makes our data impeccable.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is always consistently the same. And clients like that, they notice.
Yeah.
And I also, it's, we always start everything with we use a lot of fractional sentences, like they're not a whole complete sentence, they're fractured. Is that the right way to say that? They're fragments. I don't know how you say it, but
fragmented sentence. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd be, instead of saying, I went to the grocery store today and picked up the groceries the client wanted, and I took them to the house and I put them all away. We don't say that. We say, picked up groceries, delivered, put away. It would be just all action words. It would be, we don't need the editorializing because here's what happens when you're tracking time and you editorialize, right? Then the client recognizes there's a lot of fluff in there and thinks you're trying to create the perception of more work than you actually did.
Ah, interesting.
Right. But if you are succinct in how you say it, and it's just, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts, like Dragnet. I'm talking about a lot of old references today. If you do that, then they appreciate the attention to detail and the efficiency with which we document things, whether they recognize it or not. It could be subliminal, right? It could be an unconscious recognition, but they still recognize it. I have had people say to me, I like the way you document things. It's easy to read. It makes sense. They're not spending 20 minutes reading a bunch of nonsense.
Right.
And so we're very consistent in how we do that and have always been. And that comes from my years, I think, of working in aerospace and with primarily men in the, I used to say that ceiling wasn't glass, it was bulletproof, trying to grow up in that industry in aerospace. Men at the executive level, they don't have time for fluff. They want you right to the point. And it's so much so I'm that way that I have to almost every single email I send to a client go back and add some warm and fuzzy stuff at the beginning, because I usually launch right into what I'm talking about and don't take the time to, hi, how are you? Hope you're doing well today. That kind of stuff. I have to go back and add it every single time because I'm in a business where I need to do that.
Yeah.
But in aerospace, you don't need to do. They don't want you to do that. They want you to be very to the point.
I've never thought about that. The whole idea of I know you've talked about this before, and we've spoken about it offline of like, action words, and it's we, it's not I, and that type of thing. But it makes sense that how your customers on the other end, since you're paying for time, not a delivery of a result. Like in my business, we get paid for delivery of a particular results, right? And not if it takes us 2 hours or it takes us 2 minutes. And so I think that's really cool how you've understood that, deciphered it, and then made it consistent with all your staff.
It's super important. When I help my licensees and I go and look at their data, I'm appalled quite often because there's no consistency on how they're saying things. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of all over the place, and they do use quite a few personal pronouns. I've been really trying to teach people, do not use. That's one of the ways to keep people from stealing your business, at least in this industry, because when you use a we, our, you create a dependency on the company and not the individual. So if you say I, me, my, then you're creating a dependency on that individual. And if you have to change the individual, the clients get upset.
Mm,
right? They don't,
true.
they are now attached to that person, which is how then they can lure them away to work for them directly. Or if your engagement with that employee goes away, and then they can contact your clients and try to take them away. So we've been I lost one the first year I was in business, that I had a employee that did that. Remember I told you that I hired somebody the first time I got a client? She
Yeah.
took, I had really just two decent clients at that time. She took both of them, lied to them, and took them both. And the clients knew it. They
Wow.
called me up and they said, "We know that she's lying, but she knows our home, so we're going to keep her." I thought that was weird,
Wow.
um, but after that, I changed it so there are no more personal pronouns in my business, and that has not happened to this day. 20 years later, not happened.
I think that's something definitely that I can improve upon. When I do see myself writing I try to go back and reframe that with a we or our or us or whatever, and it's because you have drilled that into me over time, whether you realize it or not. In your storytelling, I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I remove myself as I'm the one who's doing it, so they don't just call and say, I want to talk to Jeff.
Right.
It's our company, it's Swing Point Media, and I'm in the process of trying to, if you will, delegate without sacrificing quality. I'm moving my number two, if you will. Her name is Melissa. She's been my project manager. I'm trying to move her into more of a role where she is that face that people have contact with. She is that voice. She's the email. I'm the one who connects and then gets out of the way. And
I just did that too. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, don't you think that's important at some point?
It does. I stepped on some client toes this week,
Mm,
last week. Okay. Because I'm so used to taking the initiative, and I see something come across my email and I want to respond to it right now, and I want to make sure I fix it. And so what happened is we had an issue going on with a client, and I thought that it wasn't 100% resolved. That's what I thought. And so I took the initiative to write an email and saying, if I'll give you specifics. So the golf course trees, the palm trees, were dropping fruit into the pool and clogging up the pool.
mm.
Normally, palm trees out here get trimmed in June because they start to fruit and then they get messy. This HOA wasn't going to do it until the middle of July. So when it got to the middle of July and I hadn't heard anything, I took the initiative to write to the client and say, by the way, don't forget, they're coming to do this. And technically you have to pay if you want to, if they'll do it for you if you pay them for it. Right. Turned out they had already been trimmed.
Oh,
It didn't cost them anything, and they'd already been done. And the concierge that worked for me had told them, but didn't copy me on the email because we're trying to get me out of the loop. So now what I have to do, and I told all the girls, I said, this is the way it's going to work from now on. I am not sending anything to clients unless it's a construction proposal,
yeah.
because that's too big for them to send. But any other proposals, I get an email from a client, I send it to them, tell them either how I want them to handle it or just let them handle it, and took myself out of that entire process. It's hard. It is killing me to not do this, because I often don't get, say I send, here's a quote, tell the clients this much money to do whatever it is. And they do it, but I don't always get copied. So I don't know if it ever got done.
Mm.
Now I have people I can trust implicitly. I don't really need to check on them, but my control freakness, as you see me clenching my fist, my control freakness wants to say, couldn't you just copy me on that? And then my office manager's like, but you keep saying you don't want all this email. It's like, oh, I know it. So
Yeah.
even I struggle after 20 years and knowing the right thing to do. It's really difficult, to let go. Really difficult to let go.
Well, here's a cool thing for those who are with us, is we're not speaking from a, hey, we're on this mountaintop talking down to you. We're in the same trenches as you are. We might be, we use this example of, if you have a ladder, I might be one or two rungs ahead of you. Leslie might be one or two rungs ahead of you, but we're experiencing the same things. We're practitioners of this, and we're
Right.
just sharing and discussing our experiences. not as an expert, but as a
Oh
somebody
yeah,
who
as
has
an
gone
expert.
through it. Well, as who is going through it, or
Yeah,
has gone through it, navigated through it successfully. And so I think it's important. You know, we've talked a lot about the positive sides of that. Before we wrap up today, I want to talk about, hey, common delegation mistakes and how to avoid them.
for
Do you want to start
sure.
us off?
Yeah, for sure. You need to trust your instincts, number one. If your guts tell you that this person is not the right person to give something to, you need to not do it.
Hmm.
I fall into this trap quite often because I see the good in everybody and I see the potential in people that they don't even see in themselves. And unless they see it, it isn't going to happen. It is taking me a lifetime to learn this issue. Uh, and people that have worked for me for over the last 50 years will tell you was always a downfall of mine. I hang on to people way too long.
Hmm.
Now today, what I try to do, I explained this to Carmen last night when we were talking about employees, is I try to leverage people's strengths. If I want to keep the person, I need to find what's the best fit for them and help them be successful so that they can help me, right? So that I can delegate to them and have them have tasks that make them successful. Rather, because nobody wants to fail and nobody goes in saying, I'm going to do a bad job on purpose, right? It's just that some people have different strengths than other people. And so the most common delegation mistake that you can make is to give a task to somebody and not understand that they either can't do it or don't want to, right? And so, and if they don't want to, that's okay. Some people are going to say, well, that's too bad. That's their job. Well, no, your job is to help that person be successful, right? And then if the fit isn't good, then change the task. Give them
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
Give them something else to do so that they can be, because when people are successful, they feel better about their job and they do a better job. Does that make sense? You know what
Sure.
I mean?
Absolutely.
I know I'm repeating myself because I'm old, but it's just, this is so important to me that, and I have led teams of up to 200 people. I mean, I've had single person I'm leading, and I've had 200 people across 4 continents. I've managed big teams, and I hate to say manage. I've led big teams because you can't manage people. You can motivate them by, you know what the art of motivation is? Since we're talking about this,
Tell
you don't
us.
know? I haven't told you before. The art of motivation is making someone else's perceived self-interest the same as yours,
Oh, okay.
right? So if you can somehow help them to think it's either their idea or that they want what you want them to want, then they will do it anything. I got a job once because I had people working for me in another company. They were all exempt and they were working overtime for me.
Mm.
And the new person who hired me was so impressed by that I could inspire people to give up their free time to help us all be successful. He said, I want people like that on my team. So again, that's the art of motivation. So you want to make their perceived self-interest the same as yours. That's a good one.
I think for me, I want to jump in on this, the delegation mistakes. I think early on for me was not being detailed enough and just assuming they knew what I wanted from it.
That's a big one too. Yeah.
And so what I had to become better at is saying, this is exactly what I want, and then give them examples so that it was very clear for them. And what I've seen, and this, it's funny because it's really the same as me getting the best out of AI, is the better I did that, the return the first time got better and better. And it didn't have to go back and say, okay, this is the third, this is the fourth, this is the fifth update to this. No, that was not their fault. That was my fault. And
Right.
so that for me was a big delegation mistake, is not giving them a very clear set of instructions and what the outcome was supposed to be, and then give them examples. That was something that for me, that was a mistake on my part.
Well, one of the ways to do that, to accomplish that easily, not easier, but easily, is to explain to somebody that the person after you is your client and the person before you is a client, right? So when you're explaining how you want a process done, who's feeding them, right? Like if you're doing video editing, somebody's going to provide them video to edit, right? So that person needs to know what the editor needs to make their job easier, and the editor needs to be able to tell the video person, hey, this would be better. They need to understand what's coming to them and why. And then they have their process, which is what you're talking about. And then they also need to understand the output and how that affects the next person. So people need to understand the input and outputs of whatever process their little bubble is, so that they can make better decisions, so that they can make the next person's job easier. And when they understand that, they always make better decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, you can sit anybody down and say, fill in these blanks. This is your job. All day long, you're going to get a piece of paper and you're going to fill in the blanks. And I call that a monkey job. Anybody can do that, right? But if you want a good employee and somebody who's really helping you, and you want to be able to delegate to that person, you have to teach them the inputs and the outputs of that data that they're entering, so they can make better decisions.
Yeah, as you describe this, I think about the video process. And there was a point where I did have a couple of videographers who worked for me, and I'd send them out on jobs after we'd worked together, and they saw how I did it, and then I'd turn it over to them. But I was only showing by example. I wasn't being really clear. And so now what that did is, what I would do naturally when I'm filming to make it easier for my editor, they weren't doing, and it was making it more challenging for my editor, which means I had to get back involved to do that. So again, right, that's a mistake that I had, is right, I didn't let them know what they needed to provide when they were filming to make the editing job go smoother. And exactly. And I would see like, like a simple example. Hey, 5 seconds before you get people talking, like turn the camera on and you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now roll, because that gives us some things we can edit in or edit out, versus they start talking. Well, those are usually very awkward moments for people. The same on the other end. When we're done, I'll give you a perfect example. And I don't mean this as a negative, just as an example. Like when we wrap up the show, I'll say something like, thanks for joining us today. My name is Jeff Harrison, Swing Point Media, and my co-host is, and you'll say Leslie Spohr, and I'll say, all right, goodbye. And then they'll be like that should be the end. But then there's this pause on your point for like 3 to 4 seconds, and then you'll say bye. So I have to go back and I edit that out.
Oh, no.
Right? So that's something, but you know what? I've never said that to Leslie till just now.
Go ahead and humiliate me on podcast.
No. Because there's that, here's what happens. When there's silence, we think we need to fill it.
That's so true.
And I use that silence as, that's my 5 seconds that I want to cut off. And then you'll say, bye. And I'm like, oh, shoot, it's in there. So I'll edit it in because I don't want it to be awkward. Like, I didn't let you say goodbye. So those are little,
I'm glad you told me, though. That's good. See, now I'm educated, so I can do the right thing.
Yeah. So those are little things. And so I like what you said is, even though you're just doing your job, you're not doing it in a silo. There's somebody before you and somebody after you in most cases that this will make a difference for. And right. So if we can grease the sled, if you will, so that the next person says, oh, that was really good. I really appreciate the way you give it to me, and it makes my job easier. That's a nice flow of activity.
Well, and also explaining the purpose of what they're doing is helpful. Again, the more they understand what they're doing and why, and who it's affecting and how, the better decisions they make, the more chance they have to be successful. I have found when I'm doing training on software, right, like license a software system to somebody, I always do several days of training to teach them how to use the system. And it's one-on-one, and we have assignments, right? But I have found that rather than just say, you fill out this form when you add a new client, I say, okay, these are the fields you fill out, and here's why you're doing this, because this is going to transfer over here,
Mhm.
and it's going to make your job easier for later when you need to run billing and or whatever it is. I go through why we're doing it, and that has made a huge impact on people's not only understanding but to continually use the system. When I first started this, I would build somebody's database, give them the procedures, and say, "Here you go, you're on your own." And that did not work because everything was documented. So I figured, well, it's easy to follow the documentation, but it's not. Human beings need somebody to walk them through it and see it and understand why we're doing it. And once
Mhm.
they do, then they're all in and they're good. And that's another piece of delegation is why. I've got to explain that why to people.
Well, as a kid, we always said, "Why? Why?"
Yeah, yeah.
Make your bed. Why? Because I want it made. Why? And it's like, but if you can come up with better why answers, right? The
uh,
other the
I
other
made
mistake.
him. Oh, sorry. Just before you go to the next mistake, don't lose it. I made an employee cry over the why question because this was in aerospace as a consultant. This was not my current
Okay,
employees.
okay.
We'd have a staff meeting, and some problem needed to get fixed. I don't remember what it was. I just remember she would give me some mealy mouthed answer, and I would say why, and she would give me another. She wasn't giving me really. I knew what the answer was. She was not giving me the answer, and I needed her to think for herself. So I kept saying, "But why?
Mm,
But why?" And to the point where she burst into tears because she could not articulate what she knew was the answer, what I knew was the answer, right? So then I sat her down. I said, "Okay, look, let me explain why I just did that to you." So that because I'm an advocate for people coming up with solutions, right? If there's a problem, and I know that we're not talking about that, but just quickly, I don't want somebody to come in and say, "Here's a problem, fix it." I want them to come in and say, "Here's a problem. This is what I think we should do. What do you think we should do?" Because I want them to think through the process. So anyway,
yeah.
what's the next delegation issue?
Well, I was gonna say, and this is the one I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding, and I love the platform I use because we do have a time element, but not really defining the time frame for the expectations of that delegation. I'll give you an example. If I when I first started hiring writers to write content for our clients, it was it was about a 3-day process. And
uh,
so,
Not anymore.
well, but when we first started, we had 17 writers on staff, and that's what we did. It was like when we turned it over to Leslie, the topic, we were expecting in 3 days to have that article back. And by not defining that with all in whatever it is, in my case, it was writer for this example, that I expect you to take it from here's the job to delivered to me and edited in 3 days. Well, when they know that, they know their time frame. Now they may be able to do it in a day, but they have 3 days to work with. That's the expectation we have, because then we'd move it on to the next chain of events. So if you're giving people tasks and you're not putting a time frame on it, to me it's like if my wife walked in and said, "How do I look?" and I said, "Fine," I would be in so much trouble, right?
Yeah.
You need to tell them exactly what it is. This is the job. We want you to get it done in 24 hours. And if you can't, let me know. But that's what our expectations are. So I think timing.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are probably the biggest delegation risks when you delegate. But you have to do it. Remember, we talked, it's a lifeline.
It
If you
is.
if you don't, your business is not scalable. It's funny. I was talking to a lady the other day, and she's like, she brokers businesses for people. She sells businesses, and she had somebody come to her and want to sell their business. She's a friend of mine, lives in Long Beach, and she said, um, this person wanted to sell their business, and I said, "Can you walk away for 2 weeks and your business run okay?" And they said, "No." She said, "You're not ready to sell."
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you are that integral to the business, it's not, there's no value because you are the value.
Yeah.
So, and that, you know me, I've been on this kick for over a year, almost 2 years, about working on your business and not in it. And so, and there is a process to get there, because you know me, I used to be in it thick,
Right. Right.
and now I'm not. And so, um, a big piece of that is the delegation of tasks to others and trusting them to do it. And like I said earlier, it's not always easy. I'm not
Mm.
saying it's an easy thing to do. It's a very, because you built this company, you're emotionally invested in it. But again, you have to look at the long range. What do I want out of this? Where am I going with it? Right? And what is my version of success? Okay. Because everybody has a different idea of success. Remember, we talk about, I do the puzzle metaphor for my freedom by design,
Right.
how to build a business that runs itself. Um, the puzzle box has a picture on it, and everybody's picture is different, right? Everybody's picture is different. And so for me, I think the epitome of success as a small business owner is that you can walk away and your business still operates properly. It isn't how much money I make. It isn't how much clients I have. It's not how many employees I have. That all comes, you know, that's all part of the growing of a business. But when I could walk away from it and not worry about it, or didn't have to be the person that made every single decision, I feel like I finally hit success. I mean, when was the last time you heard me complain about a 36-hour day?
Yeah. Not
No,
not at
I,
all.
I don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I worked till 1 the other night. It about killed me because it was the first time I had done that in years. And it was like, what the hell am I doing? But
Yeah.
it was because I procrastinated. That's a whole other topic. But you know, it's like I don't do that anymore. You know,
Well, that's the whole idea. That's that freedom by design, you know, template that you've created. That's what unless you're someone who is gone into business to give yourself a job, unless you're one of those kind of people, that should be something you strive for. Is you can wake up and go do something and your business doesn't know you're not there. It still operates at the highest level. And that's what
right,
Leslie is saying. She's gotten her business to do that. It still operates. She's got the right people in place. She's got the right processes and our policies and procedures in place, and they just do it, whether
right,
she's there or not. And now she's taken it one level further and said, hey, don't even CC me on the emails, which, let's face it, that's almost like you have a 17-year-old gorgeous daughter who is going out with the high school football, the quarterback, and they're going on a date. You're scared to death, except the fact that you have raised your daughter so well that her standards are what they are, that you don't have fear of that. That's what
that's correct.
Leslie has created.
That's correct. And I honestly, uh, I know, I know that all my people are excellent and they all do what they're supposed to do. And two of them are newish, and they are unicorns. They're so good. They really are unicorns. Because this day and age, it's hard to find people with the work ethic that we had growing up, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, they do things like if they're going to be out of town, like Erica's going to be gone for the next 2 days, she will get all her work done before she goes and carry her phone just to make sure that nothing goes wrong. But getting all the work done is the big thing, so that nobody here who's covering for her has to really worry. Just keep an eye on what's happening. You know, that kind of customer service and that reliance on the procedures and is not something you can. I was telling Carmen this yesterday. You can't teach customer service. So when we go all the way back to following your instincts, which we talked about earlier, um, you have to trust that if you don't feel good about somebody, just stop right then. Just
Mm,
say, give them a 90-day probation. If it's not working within 30 days, cut them loose and go on to the next person. Because if you feel bad about it, it is bad.
yeah.
I have learned the very, very hard way. Very hard
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
I've kept people way too long.
Well, speaking of way too long, let's wrap up today's episode of the Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast. Before we let you go, I just want to put on screen, Leslie's talked about a couple times her course. It is at learn.conciergebusinesssolutions.com. And she says, because time flies, if you're not steering, you're just along for the ride. And her big thing is, this whole thing about a business is like a puzzle. And most of the time, if you don't mind me taking lead on this, most of the time, we as business owners, if you think about it, we build the outside of the puzzle first, and we're trapped in the middle and we don't put the other pieces in there. Today, we talked about a piece of that, which was delegation. It's not all of it. We've talked about policies and procedures before, those type of things. But that's what this course is. And it is a phenomenal series of educational videos that I got to watch her film up in San Francisco and put together. And it is a phenomenal course. You've got to check it out. And not only do you get the videos, but you also get to be part of her business Facebook page, so you can be part of that as well, so that she's going in there often, like 2 or 3 days a week, and there's interaction with the other people in there. So it's a great place where you can say, hey, I'm in a like-minded group that I can say, hey, I watched video 17. What do you guys think of this? Or I'm having this particular challenge. And not only will Leslie help you, but the group will help you. So check that out right there. It'll be exponentially more valuable than what you'll invest in the time and effort that she's asking for.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You bet. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up today. This is a record. We're under 1 hour. So I want to really, commend us for staying on task and doing what we need to do. That's part of delegating. You can get more done, but spend less time doing it. Leslie, as always, it's a treat for me to spend time with you. My name is Jeff Harris on Swing Point Media, and you are with us on the Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast, and my co-host,
Leslie Spohr. Bye. See, I did it that right. That's it. Bye.